Have you ever had a bad day that every detail seems to test your patience? Have you ever felt that nothing could get worse? Then the universe proves that you are wrong? The midday sun crossed the Golden Oak Diner's large windows, a modest but on the edge of failure in Monterey, California. It was not a sophisticated establishment, but it had its essence, a little rustic, a little cozy, the kind of place that residents enjoyed, especially on a hot Tuesday afternoon. For Emily Carter, a 23-year-old waitress trying to pay the bills, the charm was not enough to relieve her frustration. Since the beginning of the shift, Emily was overwhelmed. "Table 5 needs more napkins," shouted a colleague, without even lifting. Her head, she wrote down one last request in the block and sighed. His ponytail rocked as he sneaking between the tables, responding to complaints about poorly passed meat, divided accounts, and wrong orders. To make matters worse, 3 rude customers had left it with changed as a tip. When a simple-looking man came in and sat alone, Emily was already on the edge. He looked like someone who didn't care much about formalities. A shabby flannel shirt, spent jeans, and a well-positioned Stetson hat on the table. Their boots told stories of long journeys. Emily gave a quick look toward her, rolling her eyes. Excellent, he thought. One more that will ask for a coffee and leave a tip of tipping, but there was no way to avoid it forever. One of the co-workers has been in a hurry. "You took the table 12, right?" Emily forced a smile and took her block, adjusting her voice to sound friendly as she approached. "What will you want today?" he asked, his tone already denouncing impatience. The man raised his face, his penetrating eyes watching it for a moment. There was something strangely familiar with him, but Emily couldn't identify. "Just a hamburger," he said, a firm, deep voice, carrying a weight that seemed to demand respect. "Hamburger?" I understood. "Something more?" "No, miss." She arched an eyebrow. "Miss, serious?" He grunted softly as he walked away to the kitchen. When Emily entered the kitchen, she couldn't move the strange feeling over that man. He was not like other customers, demanding or indifferent. There was something about him, a silent confidence, as if observing and waiting for something. It's just another customer, just one more request. She tried to convince herself, pushing the sensation away. A few minutes later, Emily returned to table 12 with the hamburger. The dish landed at the table with less delicacy than normal. She was exhausted, and her smile no longer looked natural. The man, however, has not shown noticing, or, if noticed, did not show. "Here," Emily said, pushing a strand of hair off her face as she put the bottle of ketchup beside the plate. "Something more?" He looked at the hamburger, then to her. "No, that looks great. Thanks." The words were educated, but there was a firmness in his voice that made Emily feel strangely uncomfortable. She hesitated for a second before going to another table. Something about him bothered her, but I couldn't say what. Maybe it was calm. While everyone in the restaurant complained, stirred impatient feet, or ran from side to side, he looked alien to the surrounding chaos. Without thinking, she turned to him. "You're not from here, right?" The man lifted his eyes, cutting the hamburger in half with precision. "No, I'm not. I thought not." Emily crossed her arms. "This hat gives you. It looks like it came out of an old movie." For the first time, he smiled. Not a complete smile, just a light raise of mouth. Something like that. She expected him to get annoyed, but he didn't seem affected, and that frustrated her even more. She was tired of always being polite, tired of holding what I thought. Most people around here do not appear dressed like this. Your tone was almost challenging. The man took a while before answering, calmly chewing a piece of the hamburger. "I don't think I'm like most people." The words were simple, but they carried a weight that Emily didn't expect. For a moment, he felt embarrassed, but disguised fast. "Well, enjoy your dinner." She turned before he could say anything. "I wish I had the last word." As he cleaned a nearby table, He noticed that he watched her. Not intimidatingly, but as if it was evaluating it. Emily didn't know why it bothered her so much, but something in that look would change the course of her day, and from her life, a way she would never imagine. The rush of lunch was beginning to decrease, and the restaurant was quieter. Emily took the opportunity to breathe. He leaned against the counter, keeping an eye on his tables. He took a look at the table 12. The man finished dinner without haste, drinking water and watching the restaurant as if every detail were interesting. "Hey, Emily," Danielle called, one of her colleagues. "Isn't it strange how calm is this guy? It seems that it is analyzing everything." Emily shrugged. "Some people have all the time in the world." Danielle laughed. "Maybe he's famous. Doesn't it look familiar?" Emily rolled her eyes. "Famous? If he is famous, I am the Queen of England." Danielle laughed but did not insist. Emily was not patient for speculation. He took the account of table 12 and walked there, determined to end the conversation as soon as possible. "Here's your account, when ready." The man looked at the paper, but did not take it right away. Her dark eyes studied her, and he asked, with a calm but straightforward voice, "Do you like your work?" The question took her by surprise. "What? Your work? Do you like?" She hesitated. The rehearsed smile disappeared for a second. "It's a job. You know how it is." He nodded slowly. "A job is what you make of it. But it seems that today you are carrying a weight greater than it should." Emily felt her shoulders stiffen. Something about him disconcerted her, and she didn't know why. Emily crossed her arms defensively. "Look, I had a difficult shift, okay? Not everyone can just sit down, eat a hamburger, and give a moral lesson about life." To his surprise, the man did not seem offended. Instead, he leaned on his chair, a discreet smile emerging on his lips. "Perhaps, but sometimes, as you treat people, at these times it says more about you than you think." Emily felt a wave of irritation up the neck. Was he really giving her a lesson? She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could, he stood up calmly and pulled her wallet from her pocket. "I'll leave you with that thought." He put some notes on the table. "Thanks for dinner," and then he walked toward the door. Emily snorted softly. So much cowboy. But as soon as he reached the exit, something strange happened. The manager, a serious woman named Carol, has been hurried from the office in the back. Her face illuminated to see him, and she reached out enthusiastically. "Mr. Johnson, I didn't expect to see him today." Emily was paralyzed. His brain repeated his name in his head as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Mr. Johnson? Dwayne Johnson?" Her eyes widened. He turned briefly to tighten Carol's hand, exchanging a quick look with her before leaving the door. At that moment, Emily realized that she had not just been rude to any customer, she had just insulted the restaurant owner. Your body crashed. The request block was tight between his fingers. She blinked a few times, trying to sue what had just happened. Had she really disrespected Dwayne Johnson? The Dwayne Johnson, and worse yet, was he owner of the Golden Oak Diner? Her heart shot when Carol turned excited. "Emily, can you believe it? Mr. Johnson came here today. He's been so busy lately that I have not seen him for weeks. It's..." "Wow!" Emily babbled, trying to force a smile. Carol kept talking, too excited to notice the stunned expression of the waitress. "This restaurant means a lot for him. Every detail here was chosen by him in person. This is why we should always do our best. We never know when it may appear." Emily's stomach rolled. Every rude word he had said to him echoed in his head. Each look of eyes, every impatient sigh. She felt her face warm. "Are you okay?" Danielle asked, noticing her fixed gaze on the door. I need a minute." Without waiting for an answer, Emily walked away and entered the employee room. As soon as he closed the door behind him, he let out a long breath and fell, sitting in a chair. How could she be so blind? She worked at the Golden Oak Diner for 2 years and never paid attention to the stories about the mysterious owner of the place. If I had, it might have recognized it. Or at least, I would have thought twice before opening my mouth. The heart was still accelerated, but then a thought hit her like a shock, and now she didn't know. But Dwayne Johnson hadn't finished her yet. The next morning, Emily arrived at the shift with a weight in her stomach. He had not slept well, remembering every detail of the previous day. Each time he thought of Dwayne Johnson's calm look and the way he came out without haste, his chest squeezed. What if he had talked to Carol about his attitude? What if they were fired? She couldn't afford to lose her job. The rent won in 2 weeks, and college accounts were already accumulating. He spent the first half of the shift avoiding Carol's gaze and doing everything possible to please customers. Forced smiles, quick excuses, drinks delivered even before they are ordered. It was the biggest effort you had put at work in months. When the lunch movement increased, the restaurant was agitated. Emily was cleaning a table when she heard an unmistakable voice behind her. "Looks like you're busy today." Your body froze. She turned slowly and saw Dwayne Johnson sitting near the window, her arms relaxed on the table, watching her with that evaluating look she already knew well. He wore the same clothes from the day before, but this time his presence seemed even more striking. Emily's heart shot. She tried to force a smile, but her mind was 1,000, trying to find something to say. "Ah, Mr. Johnson. Hi, I didn't know the Lord would come back anytime soon." He tilted his head slightly, the neutral expression. "I like to take a look at my places from time to time." Keeps everyone attentive. Her stomach rolled. His hands began to sweat. "Okay, well, everything is doing very well today." He smiled lightly and looked around the restaurant. "I understand that, but you look a little tense." Emily moved, uncomfortable. Of course he noticed. He probably realizes everything. "Me just about yesterday." He raised his hand, interrupting it before the sentence ended. "You don't have to apologize," he said calmly. "I'm not here to make your life difficult." She blinked, surprised by the answer. "It is not." "No." His voice was firm. "But I think there's a lesson at all." He watched her for a moment before continuing. "You never know who you are talking to or what the person is going through. Small gestures make a difference." Emily was speechless. She felt a knot squeeze her throat. "Look, I also had bad days," Dwayne Johnson continued, her voice, laden voice. "But the way you deal with these days says a lot about who you are. And believe me, people realize." Her cheeks warmed. He wasn't trying to embarrass her. "I was trying to teach her something." "Thank you," Emily murmured. Her voice almost failed. "I mean, really." He gave a little smile. "Nothing. Just remember, every interaction is an opportunity. Use it well." And with that, he got up and left. Emily stood, a mixture of emotions to flood. In the following months, his words did not leave his head. All interaction is an opportunity. Each time he crossed the Golden Oak Diner hall, these words echoed in his mind. At first, she didn't know where to start. She was not the kind of person who pretended smiles or serving customers as if everything were perfect. But something in Dwayne Johnson's calm stayed with her. Maybe she didn't have to pretend to be someone who wasn't. "I just needed to try a little more." Then it started with small changes. When an exhausted mother knocked a soda while trying to control 3 restless children, Emily did not sigh or rolled her eyes. He took a cloth and smiled. "Don't worry, it happens to everyone." When an elderly couple asked her to repeat the specials 3 times, she showed no impatience. He explained each dish again and even made a personal recommendation. Over time, he realized something surprising. The more effort he put to treat people with patience, the better he felt. One night, near the end of the shift, Carol called her to the office. Emily's stomach turned around. Had he done something wrong? "You have been here for a long time," Carol said, crossing her hands on the table, "and I noticed a change in you." Emily waited, tense. "A good change," Carol added. She blinked, surprised. "Ah, thank you," Carol smiled. "I don't know what happened, but whatever it is, continue." Customers also noticed. Someone even left a comment praising their service. A different heat traveled Emily's chest. She never expected to be noted. When she left the office that night, she felt a small smile appear on her lips. "I still had a lot to learn, but for the first time in a long time, I felt it was on the right track." Before leaving, he looked at Golden Oak Diner's illuminated sign. That place was not just a job. It was a place where it could grow, learn, and perhaps make a difference. And all this because a silent strange came on any day and taught her a lesson that would never forget. Because sometimes the simplest interactions make the biggest impact. Before leaving, Emily looked at Golden Oak Diner's illuminated sign. That place was not just a job. It was a space where it could grow, learn, and perhaps make a difference. And all this because a silent strange came on any day and taught her a lesson that would never forget. Because sometimes the simplest interactions make the biggest impact. By the way, have you had an experience that changed your perspective on something? If so, share it in the comments. And if you like stories like this, full of reflections and twists, subscribe to the channel. Just as each interaction is an opportunity, each story can teach us something new. So don't miss the next one.